Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Peace's guest speaker series, where we've been talking with paralegal and lawyer bencher candidates. As always, the views and opinions are of the candidates alone. They don't reflect me, Justice and Peace's, Trials College, or any other education institution or organization I'm affiliated with. Today, continuing on our series we have Suramya joining us, and perhaps you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get started.
Thank you for having me here again. And Misra, Suramya. Misra is my last name and Suramya is my first name, but I like to introduce myself with my first name first, last name first, is simply because that is what my election identity will be. So that's about me. That's my name, and I've been a paralegal for a long time now, 5 years, and yeah, that's it.
All right. So why are you running? You've been a paralegal for 5 years now. Why are you running for bencher in this election?
Why am I running? That's a great question. Thank you for that question. When God sends you an opportunity, then you're just there. So I am here because I was shown that door, and then I researched and I looked around and I realized that people wanted some sort of representation and people wanted some sort of changes. And yeah, so I thought maybe, I would be a good fit for those changes and to bring those changes and to advocate for people. So this I'm here.
So what are those changes, right? Where do you see yourself advocating for people? What you'd like to see differently done at the Law Society if you're elected as bencher?
These are very extremely intense questions. I think these should come at a later stage in the interview. They're extremely intense, but uh, there's communication issues, right? This is what I've been told, that there's communication issues. To be very, very honest, let me start a little bit, okay? When I became a licensed paralegal in 2018, and I did not know what was a bencher, what was the role of the bencher until 2021. Nobody told me these are my reps. Nobody told me these are the people that you contact. I mean, it it was just a very prestigious public office, and I didn't know these people were like so reachable. And eventually I realized that you know this is an opportunity, and if I really want to bring the change, you have to go in there, be the person who puts the effort, because this is more of a volunteer work, right? So you go there and bring the change. Like, there's communication issues, there's scope of expansion, there's several unsaid issues. uh, Respect for all, equality amongst all, these are several unsaid issues. There were several things that while I'm in courts, I feel that these need to be changed. A lot of our previous benchers have gotten those, some of these things changed, right? Is because when you see on a regular basis that these are the things that are affecting our profession, you get those changes done. So yeah, that is why I'm here.
Okay, so now in terms of maybe since you've become licensed, what are some other things you've done? You told us a little bit about yourself, but maybe you can expand. What are the areas maybe you practice in? Are you involved in any other organizations? How do you mentioned communication,
Mm.
right? So what are ways in terms of that you're communicating with other paralegal licensees?
So my areas of practice are provincial offences, residential tenancy, small claims. And when it comes to organizations, I'm with OPA. I'm their board of director and secretary. I also teach in one of the colleges, paralegal courses. I teach with CDI. So, and communications, I meet my colleagues everywhere. When I go to court, I run into them. A few of them I know from my college. So yeah, so networking sites, people you work with, people you've worked with, people. That's how you meet people.
Okay, so then how should you mentioned, it took you 3 years to realize, here are who our benchers are and what do they do. So what can the Law Society do in terms of if you're elected, in terms of communication? what could they be doing differently? And certainly you could look at, you mentioned you're the secretary of the OPA, right? I mean, what are
Yeah.
some of the things that they're doing that, again, could help you in this position?
I don't think anybody can help anybody if elected. It is on us to help ourselves and the community. And this is the reason why we would be elected. Law Society cannot do anything. We have to do things for Law Society to come and help us. You know what I mean? So there are certain things that I would like to do. I would like to make myself available. I would like to go meet with students on a regular basis. I would like to initiate programs with the different colleges, be a social media presence, be a college presence, be in the picture regularly. Do the work for the community, meet people regularly. Once I've gotten onto this, if elected, once I am in the office, that doesn't mean that, you know what, now I am set for 4 years, I have this prestigious title, and I will just lock my doors and I will not communicate with people. No, I would like to go back to my college, Sheridan, and I would like to, meet people, tell these students, and not once, maybe twice, thrice a year. I would like to dedicate my time in educating people about our profession. You do realize that our profession is not pretty well understood. Now people are beginning to understand what paralegals do. Initially everybody used to thought like, this was the worst question everybody like asked me, so you're the Rachel Zane, and I'm like, no, I am the Harvey Specter, what are you talking about? Right? So to let people know, host seminars, meet people, eh, have have such kind of things where people know a little more about our profession and what our profession has for them.
Now, how much should that be coming? Like you said, well, you're going to do that. I mean, as potentially an elected bencher of the Law Society, right? You'd be on the equivalent of the board of directors, let's say. But I mean, how much of that responsibility falls on the individuals at the Law Society, the staff at the Law Society, the other benchers, yourself, whoever, and how much of, again, explaining that falls on organizations like, you mentioned the Ontario Paralegal Association? Couldn't they be doing the same thing in terms of, we are the association for paralegals. We can go around to all the different schools and put on events. There's a education committee. There's all sorts of people there, right? I mean, should that be coming from the Law Society, or should that be coming from the OPA, or anyone else, any other organizations advocating on behalf of paralegals? As you said, well, we're like the Harveys and not the Rachel Zanes, right? But who should be bringing that message forward?
So I would like to say this very abruptly to you. It's whoever wants to do it. It's whoever wants to do it. Yes, OPA should do it. And I have recently joined OPA, and we've been doing a lot of things, and people come to me and they suggest stuff. And once they tell me that this is something that we would like to see, they get to see that. So if you'll tell me that this is what I'm looking for, consider that done. If it's a reasonable thing, if it's a legal, reasonable, legitimate thing, consider it done, right? And yes, OPA has been doing it. I will not say they've not done this, they've not done that. I'm not here to crib and cry who has not done what. I'm sorry if you're looking those sorts of answers. No, I'm here to explain that I do things and I get things done. And if given an opportunity, I will get more things done.
Okay, so then in terms of the role of a bencher, right? In terms of, you mentioned scope, right? So what should be done about addressing scope for paralegals? Like how much more, what could be added? I mean, what are your thoughts? Because I mean, everyone's talking about expansion of scope, but I guess the first part is, if there should be areas expanded, what should those areas be? And then we'll go from there.
Immigration for sure. One thing that I 100% know and I believe that we should be given is immigration. And I will tell you why. It's only and only for federal paramountcy, right? The federal law allows us, correct? And we can go to IRB. So why not do the paperwork? Right? It comes to also access it. It's just something that we should be allowed to do. Why are we being stopped? So that is something that we should be allowed. Also, divisional court appeal is something that I would definitely like to look into. That is very that's something that I have plans for, and I have very reasonable plans for. And I am sure, if given an opportunity, I would table my propositions in a very reasonable and very appealing manner, so that we do get to go to reasonable divisional court appeals.
Okay, so I mean, leaving the immigration piece, there's going to be certainly arguments about whether or not that is applicable, right, in terms of constitutional law, to Section 91, 92 type of analysis. So, I mean, the courts will weigh in at some point, and there may be appeals and so forth. But I mean, the Law Society can decide to expand that scope irrespective of what a court decision is, right? Now, in order to do so, and again, the timeliness would be potentially faster because it's going to take some time to be heard. And again, if there's any further appeals, et cetera. But in order for there to be any expansion of scope, you mentioned divisional court as well. There's a process that needs to be done, right? That there needs to be studies, perhaps. Then it has to come through committees and then be presented, maybe the paralegal standing committee, whoever presented to convocation, and then it needs to go to a vote. Right now, there are 53 members of the board of directors of the benchers. And again, in order for something to pass, you'll need at least 27 people in favor of it. And paralegals have 5 votes, right? Paralegal benchers have 5 votes. Lay benchers have 8. So you'd have 13 there. That means you're at a minimum got to convince at least 14 lawyers, if not more, in case any of those other 13 aren't in favor, to support expanding the scope, whether it is on immigration, whether it's on family law, whether it's on divisional court appeals, et cetera, right? So how do you see kind of convincing those individuals that these areas should be expanded? Like, why would they be supporting something? And what ideas do you have to convince them that they should be voting for further scope?
My friend, a magician never reveals their trick. Never. And this number, as I've told you before also, this number just does not scare me. It's a very doable number. And I have honest belief in my plan of action. I have honest belief in the way I propose to bring those changes. I am not here to tell them, give it to us right now, and we are fit to do it, and we're going to do it, and you're doing the wrong thing. No, this is not what I'm telling them. I have a plan, I have an action. I say, after 10 years of somebody who's been in good standing with law society, somebody who's shown their competence for 10 years should be allowed to go to divisional court. 10 years is a long time to get committed to a profession. And if somebody is doing that for 10 years, I think they should be rewarded for their persistence. They should be rewarded for their competence and the effort they put in every single day. So I think divisional court appeal is something that should be a time bound issue, rather than, because let me just tell you. So do lawyers have to upgrade their education every year? Do they take the bar every year?
Well, there's continuing professional development every year.
Yeah, that's something we also do. We also do CPD.
Okay, but I'm not understanding. So you're saying after 10 years of practice, if you're practicing as a paralegal for 10 years or licensed for 10 years, at that point, you should be able to just do divisional court appeals. So what about in the first 9 years for anyone else?
Become competent.
Okay, but how are they becoming competent?
By attending the board by attending the board for the 9 years.
Right, but so do they have to be practicing in that area?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so for those that are doing matters that then they can't do the appeals right now, you're saying that after you've done that for 10 years, at that point, if you're in that field, then you should then be able to take on those appeals, right?
Yeah.
So what if for the paralegals that are listening, they're saying, well, are you suggesting that I have to wait 10 years to and only at that point I could sort of see an expansion of my scope in that area? I mean, what if I want to do that now? What if I'm doing that for 2 years, 3 years, and you're saying I have to wait another 7 years? Does that make sense? So I mean,
So
what
then
would you
I
say in
have an
response to that?
answer. I have an answer. Patience and persistence. Okay. Otherwise, we go to law school. If we
Okay.
have to be fair, we have to be fair to those who went to law school, who invested 6 years and who invested thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and took students' loan and are repaying the student loan. Just because they have more scope of practice, we should not start saying that, you know what, you're different, we're different. Yes, I honestly believe if in 10 years I can show my dedication and commitment, and I can show that I'm competent after 10 years, I'm not saying give me Supreme Court. All I'm saying is give me divisional court. And that is what I'm saying. My demands are extremely, extremely reasonable. The way to get something should be reasonable. The Constitution says a reasonable person, a reasonable man, right? And I get it, somebody wants to do it. If somebody wants to do it day one, then there are other ways. And that other ways go to law school.
Okay, then what about immigration then, right? What
Yeah.
would you propose in terms of being able to, again, leaving out whatever happens at court, but if you want to expand the scope of immigration right now, right? I mean, let's say in the next 4 years, as if you're elected as bencher and you want to visit that, to say, well, we can do immigration refugee board matters. Why
Yeah.
not the application? So what would you say, again, as a means to allow paralegals to practice in this area? As you said, for divisional court, show 10 years of experience, and then afterwards you should be
Yeah.
able to do your appeals. What about for those in immigration?
Immigration, we should be we should be given that like right away. Literally right away. I would have a fierce fight for this. This is something that that should be rightfully ours. Right?
Okay, and I'm just trying to understand. So why should immigration be
Hmm.
just rightfully yours? No, nothing needs to change.
Yeah.
But then for divisional court, you need 10 years of practice experience.
Ladder. Level.
Okay, so what's with immigration that you can do?
When it comes to immigration, what they're stopping us to do is doing the basic paperwork. Make sense? Basic paperwork means filling form for people who could be potentially my clients. Meaning, if somebody wants to immigrate from India to this country and they want their PR to be done, I can fill paperwork on their behalf and submit it to the board, to immigration. I can't do that. But when I do the same thing for LTV, small claims, I can represent people in summary conviction matters. Why not immigration? We are allowed to appear before serious charges under criminal law. And you're telling me we're not competent enough to fill immigration paperwork?
Well, I mean, well, in one aspect, you may have had education, right? You could have practiced in criminal law, right? You could have either been a sole practitioner, right, in summary conviction matters, or you could have worked, for a lawyer in criminal matters to get you the understanding there, right? So, I mean, with any area, I mean, if you're going from landlord tenant to immigration, or from immigration to small claims, and the paperwork that needs to be filled out. I mean, it's not as simple as just filling out forms, right? Otherwise, the other question is, there's AI right now and Chat GPT, and people are saying, well, couldn't we just get them, these documents to be done? Why even hire lawyers and paralegals to do some of the paperwork, right? So, I mean, what would you say in response to some of these areas where there is artificial intelligence, right, in terms of looking at paperwork being done? And then ensuring as well competence, right? That there's no mistakes. You've read up with the law, things like that.
You're tapping one of the most controversial things that I don't like to talk about. When it comes to softwares like Chat GPT, If there is enough volume, what's the guarantee it will not crash? Right? It's a man-made software. Humans are differently designed. We are differently abled, right? And if you can, I mean, I have nothing to say. So then tomorrow, if computers can operate on people, then let's give them scissors and let's ask them to cut us open. You know
Well, I'm
what I
just
mean?
well, I'm just trying to understand because your answer sort of for the divisional court is a lengthy kind of process to wait for, but you're characterizing immigration as filling paperwork, right? That
Yeah.
I'm sure that those immigration consultants, immigration lawyers would say that there's more than that, right? I mean, otherwise, everyone would do immigration, right?
No,
But I mean,
immigration is pretty self-explanatory. I did my residency by myself. I paid somebody $5,000. They took my $5,000. They did not get me the residency. I did my paperwork. Not only got my express entry. Personally, I got my PNP too, and then I got my express entry. I did a better job for myself.
okay, so besides then immigration and divisional court, I mean, is there anything else in terms of expansion that can be looked at that you think is important again in this election?
For now, I would not like to give anybody any false hopes and false promises. These are the only two things that I focus on. There is family law that's coming up. Once it is there and once we are at that stage, I would like to definitely give my suggestions in the best interest I can, and of not only the public but my colleagues who are a part of the public. But immigration, I mean, you're taking away a big chunk from us, and that is a willful taking away. It's not the law. The law allows us to do it. The federal law allows us. It's not that the federal law is telling you that we can't. It is very explicitly saying that we can.
Well, again, that's up to the courts to interpret whether or not that's true or not. So, I mean, that's sort of where that stands, and there's obviously litigation there that'll determine whether or not that interpretation is correct or not. And then certainly, I've heard people who have opposite view of that, and in that they would disagree that it's so cut and dry. And I mean, obviously, the Law Society does in why they've opposed, right? So, again, that'll be determined in the courts. And maybe let's leave scope, right? I mean, you've highlighted those areas, and you highlighted communication. So what else? I mean, has caused you to put your name forward here? What are the other things that you'd like to see done at the Law Society if you're elected?
Once I'm there, then I'll decide. Once I'm there, yeah. Out of all the ventures that were my previous representatives, I only know one, Marian Lepa, and she was extremely kind to me. She was extremely welcoming. She was extremely kind. She's a beautiful lady, and it is for her and the way she governs herself and the way she is. I mean, I was inspired to come forward and be a part of this and bring some change, be there for my people, right? That is the whole motive. There is no goal, there is no agenda, there is no there is no uh, reason why I'm here. The only vision that I have is for my people, my paralegal family, to know that there is somebody there for them, right? We have a ongoing profession, and if we do not contribute our part to it, it'll die, right? A lot of people tell me that they stopped practicing, while a lot of internationally trained lawyers I teach, right? So a lot of internationally trained lawyers like myself immigrate to this country, and then they find themselves practicing, I mean, providing legal services as a paralegal, right? It's a great little profession in this beautiful province of Ontario that's blooming. And now is the time that we contribute our best in we bring our best foot out, and we walk and we take this somewhere, make a history out of it. This is our opportunity.
Okay, so you mentioned you're teaching, right? So you're in education, and there's been plenty of discussion recently about what education is needed, right? Even in immigration, right? Some schools have an immigration course, others don't. Some schools have, and now the internship hours are going up from 120 to 240 hours.
Yeah.
In terms of strengthening credentials of people involved in terms of practice experience. But what do you see in terms of in education? There are a lot of paralegals that go through school, then they may write the licensing exam, and then they may pass the licensing exam, and then the numbers are saying, well, they kind of, a large portion don't go any further. They either don't start practicing, or they practice, and after a little while they may not continue practicing again. At least the numbers that were shared recently. So, I mean, given your role in education there as an instructor, what could you share in terms of what's going well with education of paralegal students, and where could there be improvements?
See, education is fine, but this is why they reach up to being a licensee, but they never go any further or they fall back, is because they don't have any guidance. They don't know who to reach out. What I'm saying is, I have an independent office. I am your representative. Call me, ask me. I'll tell you how to set up your business. I'll show you how to be independent. I became independent myself too, right? So for somebody to understand how to become independent, for somebody to know, you there is just a little tiny little difference between failure and success, and that is you knowing somebody has got your back. It's very simple. Okay, and you don't need anything. All you need is moral support. You go out there. I am standing here for you. You go do your mistake. I'm standing. My dad, this is what my dad does. If my dad wasn't the way he is, or like both my sister and myself, we would be married to some bank clerk back in India. We would have followed the traditional family norms. We would both be married to some bank clerk back in India, and we would both be making chapatis and rotis. No, my dad was modern and strong enough to send us both out of not the house but country. I left my house at the age of 18, and I left the country at the age of 23, and I am here because even till date he tells me, oh, you move forward, I am behind you. I am sitting here, you tell me what do you need. So these people need to know that go make your mistake, I am here for you. All this is all they need. And I'll tell you, if you go ask my students, they'll tell you this. Like, I tell them, I yesterday I had my new cohort starting, and I told them, get a new job and start collecting $10,000. This is what you'll need in your first year when you start your practice. Nobody told me this. Nobody told me this, that I would require $10,000. I tell my students, go start, get a new job and start saving. Now, what is going to happen is they'll start saving now. They will know that this is an estimate, right? So nobody teaches us to dream big. Nobody teaches us to fly high. I wanted to fly high, and people from my profession who signed my ventures form were out there cutting my wings. And I was shocked to see that kind of behavior. That this is the person who told me, yeah, you fill your ventures form. And when I did, and when I posted for the first time that I am running for this election, they were the first people to talk so much bad about me. And then I called my dad and I said, you know what, have I done the right thing? Are you sure? He said, yeah, make your mistake. What's the problem? And he said, what's the worst that can happen? You'll have to come back home. I am sitting here. Right? So all these new licensees need to know that there is somebody somewhere that they can fall back on. I had amazing professors, even not only in Sheridan when I was in law school. And they would tell us this, like, you know what? I give you immunity, go do whatever you want to do. Just get good grades, right? So everybody has the potential. But the only thing lacking is competence, is courtesy, right? This feeling that, oh, you're an immigrant, you're from here, you're from there. Immigrants feeling, oh, you're from here, so you will have that privilege. No. I feel I get treated really well in quotes, way more well in quotes than people, than my friends and colleagues who are from here, right? Nobody will tell you this picture. When I came to this country and I went to this law office, and I said, hi, I'd like to volunteer my time. I was 23, very, very young, impressionable age, and whatever your elders tell you, you just put it in your brain, right? So this very nice gentleman, he says, you will never be able to practice law in this country. And I said, why? And he said, because you don't have the accent. And this is a gentleman from my ethnic origin. And I took that and I put it in my head. And I took it with me for years. Only when I started going to courts, I realized people were extremely welcoming. These older judges, they're so welcoming. They would be like, oh, Miss Misra, that's fine if you don't have this paper. We'll still give you a chance. We'll give you an adjournment. Do one thing, get this paper, get this document. You're supposed to get this affidavit. And from there, I started building up my own confidence. Make sense?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess for students and new licensees, there's whether it's again not having that knowledge, that experience, to be going forward in the profession, right? And you're saying having supports in place that people are here to help you. But I mean, what specifically do they need, right? I mean, other than someone being there, okay, if you mess this up, I can help with it. But what should be done, I guess, in terms of looking at the numbers that are leaving, right? I mean, is it just having more mentorship programs, or is it changing the curriculum at schools? Is it adding anything to classes at the schools?
Schools, I think, are just doing fine. Don't you think so?
Well, I mean, I think there's certainly more that can be done, right? In terms of, maybe more hands-on learning. There can certainly be, again, additional hours of working at a firm, right? Or in a paralegal practice, right? From 120 to 240. But again, what happens after they leave school, right? I mean,
You
because
can you can add 5,000 number of hours and 500 kind of courses, but the place where they go work, if the person that is hosting them is not courteous to them, is not welcoming, they will leave. I
right, so,
was
so then
I
what can be done about that, right? I mean, what can be done about now,
there
especially because now you have 240 hours, right? So it's looking at approximately, if you're doing like 30 hours a week, about 8 weeks, which is again double the last batch there. So how much is that important? From the Law Society's perspective, they're pretty hands off compared to for lawyers and articling. I mean, that program is almost entirely through the Law Society, right? I mean, there's the TMU LPP program and things like that. But I mean, generally, you apply for articling. It's even the Law Society would have postings, but it's different for the paralegal internship, which comes completely through I think it's 24 different accredited colleges, right? So, I mean, what does the Law Society need to be doing in terms of getting more consistent internship hosts, especially now that the hours go from 120 to 240? What can they be doing better?
What can Law Society be doing better? They could have a little online space for us where anybody who's interested sends in that, what, we are willing to host n number of people, and it should be posted that these are all internships that are available, and students should be able to pick and choose. Usually it's the placement coordinator. The placement coordinators from colleges, they contact us, and the placement coordinator, I mean, I think it's extremely easy.
Yeah, but you were just mentioning people might have experiences where there's no, I guess maybe they didn't learn as
Oh,
much or it wasn't courteous, right? So
yeah.
again, what can the law society be doing? Or I mean, otherwise you can certainly tell me, well, maybe it's on the placement coordinators to investigate better, and maybe the law society's role is, in paralegal education to make sure that they're doing their due diligence there. But again, is that something from the law society? Is that something from the schools? Is that something from the hosts? Right? I mean,
It's from us. It's from the host. We have to. We have to look inside and change ourselves, right? And if somebody is going through something like that, law society does have provisions. You can go ahead and you can file complaint. If you don't want to file a complaint, you can always come and talk to, your benchers. I spoke to somebody about an issue, and I got a good response, and it's an experience, and but don't give up hope. And it is entirely on the host, it is on us to improve our own behaviors, right? It is not something, law society already has its provision. If you have a sexual harassment complaint, you go to this department. If you have this complaint, you go to this department, right? They already have provisions in place. And it's heartbreaking how some people do it and get away with it for a very long time.
well, I guess
And
that's the issue. No, not necessarily those things where you have, but it may just be somebody goes on internship, they get to work very hands on. Maybe they get to make submissions at court. They get to do a lot of like a lot of real world experience that they're getting. And somebody else, they could be doing some paperwork. They could be answering the phones. And again, the experiences can be vastly different, even though they're maybe in the same program
yeah,
doing the same kind of internship. And again, if you're saying, well, the paralegal host should do better, I mean, who's there to make sure they're giving them, again, it comes back to either it's from the schools through the placement coordinators, or it's from the law society through checking in and making sure that they're getting like that first person's experience where they're in court, they're learning, maybe working in legal clinics, whatever it may be. But again, what should the law society be doing if you're elected as bencher? I mean, or you may be telling me, we should put trust in the hosts and hope that they realize what they're doing is a problem.
yeah. We I mean, law society should, I don't see anything that law society needs to do in this at all. I mean, we have 240 hours now, and it's the host, and we can't force our students that you have to mandatory do this. Somebody doesn't like answering the call, somebody doesn't like going on to the courts. But what I'm saying is, soon after your placement, don't shy away. I didn't learn what I learned in placement was different. What I learned in school was different. What I learned during my practice is entirely different. And trust me, laws are changing every day. You have to update your knowledge, you have to study and keep doing it. When you go to court, it's everyday learning, right? Every day you learn something new, right? So nobody can, sometimes hosts are amazing, sometimes hosts are not amazing, right? Whatever you learn, make the most of it. If you're not given an opportunity, I was not taught, I wasn't spoon fed. I was given work and I did it, right? And then I kept my eyes and ears open, and every word that came out from my surrounding, I took it, and everything that I could take it, I learned it, and then I started applying it, right? So you have to also be proactive. Nobody can spoon feed you. This is a legal subject, right? This is a very very important subject. This saves lives. This is a matter of people's lives, people's money. This is like people's law, right? This is about people. So you have to put in your effort. As I said, it is always on us.
Now, Miss Misra, is there anything else in terms of that we may not have talked about that you want to highlight for anyone listening who may be thinking about voting in the upcoming election?
Yes. In the upcoming election, please do vote. Don't be like, oh, I have nothing to do with this. If you have the capacity and capability, and if you're eligible to vote, please do vote. Your vote is something that is going to make the difference. Um uh, there are what I've heard is there are set number of voters, there is set number of benchers, and I don't know, I don't want to get into that politics, but please do vote. And yeah, it's very important.
All right, so last couple of questions here then. So you're an instructor and you've had new students today, so perhaps you already told them this, but as they look to go through the education and they go into becoming licensed, any advice, any words of wisdom for them?
Keep hustling. Don't give up on your dream. You're doing the right thing. This is a great field. This is an amazing, amazing career, and it's a very noble career. Forget money, forget forget name, forget fame. This is a noble career that you've chosen, and nothing comes for easy. You have to have your share of struggles. And if you are facing struggles, then definitely, my friend, you're on the right path and right track. So just keep going. First year of your career is the toughest. The day you do your first 365 days, your value doubles in the market. And then going forward, you start building, and in 4 or 5 years, you become valuable, and you become the wealth. You are the wealth, because in 5 years you have enough knowledge, you know enough to be on your own, to make your own decisions, to understand. I mean, it this is the only course that I see that gives you the power to be your own boss, and you do the noble thing. And this is one place where if you give your first year, and if you give your second year, after first year to second year, things improve massively, right? And if you keep doing that, then after a certain time, people call you, and you don't call people. If you take any industry, you have to, except for doctors, you have to reach out people. Here, sales reaches out to you. So better yourself, educate yourself every day, update your knowledge every day. It's very important. And make a network. If you can't, if you're a shy person, uh, come to me. I'll help you make a network, right? But make a network, please, because your network, your colleagues, your friends are always going to be there. And we advocates are the only tribe in the world that fights in the courts like anything, but soon after that, we all go out and chill together. So we've got your back. We're always going to be friends of each other, and don't give up. This Just don't give up. And if you ever think of giving up, call me. I'm here.
All right, final question for any of the paralegals that are listening and they have up to 5 votes in the election. Why should they use one of those votes on you?
Hmm. Why should you? I will just say vote. Voting is your democratic right. And I will not tell you who should you vote. I mean, that is wrong of me to say vote for me. You should definitely research about all your candidates, and it is entirely up to you. If you like a candidate, then you should remove their body color, their national heritage, their everything from them, and you should see them as an individual and what they have achieved. Very yesterday, somebody told me that you do not qualify, and I asked them why. And they said nobody had heard. They said a lot of nasty things. And then they said, And then I sent them my credentials that this is what I've done, this is what I've done, this is what I've done. And in the end, they said that because nobody had heard your name prior to the selection, thus you don't qualify. So I said, so popularity is your only qualification. Is that what you're telling me? So they just said, be well, and they left. Right? So popularity, brand name, big names, people who spend a lot of big bucks. I don't know what guarantees they bring, but one thing that I can assure is I will never give you a false hope, and I will never give you a false dream. But if I will give you a hope and if I will give you a dream, I will abide by my word and I will fight fiercely for you. I will not be loud, and I'm sorry, I cannot fight. I'm a proper pro lover, but I am fierce.
Perfect. So thanks once again for taking the time and talking with us. And thanks for everyone for listening as always. Take care.